Financial leadership is changing. CFOs no longer record history. They make history. This podcast will help you become a better leader, strategic thinker, and digital visionary. Welcome to Secrets of Rockstar CFOs, the ultimate podcast for chief financial officers. Follow along as Jack McCullough engages in exciting chats with accomplished CFOs, learning how they overcame obstacles and positioned their companies for the future. Here's your host, Jack McCullough.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. I'm your host, Jack McCullough. You can follow us online at rockstarcfos.com. Great guest today, so we're going to get right into it. Let's rock. I'm joined today by my friend, Bolanle Williams-Olley. Bolo, welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs.
Thank you so much for having me, Jack.
It's great to have you. I've been looking forward to having you a guest almost since I launched the podcast. But cool. But I want to get people a little chance to understand about your firm. What can you tell us about Mancini Duffy at a high level?
Sure. So Mancini is an architecture and interior design firm based in New York City. We're actually over 100 years old. Clearly, I'm not 100, but we have been fortunate to have such an amazing and rich legacy given to us. So myself and for the partners are currently the ones running the organization, and we service all sorts of sectors. So aviation, hospitality, corporate interiors, finance, self-storage, you name it, we're doing it. We actually just completed an amazing project in Times Square, TSX Entertainment out there. So if you're ever in New York City and you see that project, no, it's my firm that did it. And yeah, we take a tech-forward approach when it comes to how we win work, how we are designing, how we push, our architects and projects forward. And so we actually have a patent-approved software, something that we've developed called the Toolbelt. We're really, really, really proud about that. I think that's part of our own legacy. And what it essentially does is bring our clients in sort of like a 360 design process very early on in the project. And we take the client even before project is done, location is got, they're in a VR environment and they can see their projects. It really helps key stakeholders make their decisions much faster. And what we like to say is that things that our peers or in fact how we used to design before that would take 3 weeks, we can do it in 3 hours. And so we still need the full 3 weeks, but we're using it more to fine-tune the decisions that the client has made, and it just allows us start off our projects at an amazing in an amazing way. So yeah, that's long and short about Mancini.
Yeah, fantastic. And do you know who Mike Brady is from the Brady Bunch?
No.
Oh, the Brady Bunch you must know for sure. But
I know the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, Mike was the father. He was an architect, and I'm told he was, even though he's fictional, he was the most famous architect in history. So
awesome.
Despite not actually being an architect. So cool.
Awesome.
That's great. So I'd love to chat a little about your background, because amongst American CFOs, it's relatively rare. But you were raised in Nigeria by a single mom. And I'd love to know how that experience has impacted you, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, so my childhood up until age 17, I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. And my mom was a single mother, did an amazing, amazing job making sure that I had the best education, raised in a lot of love. My mom, interestingly, was from what we'll call a polygamous home. So she has 44 brothers and sisters. I did not meet all of them, but that's a pretty large family. Nobody was considered half. But when you think about the environment I was raised in, lots of cousins, right? So even if I was an only child, I never really felt alone because we were always at someone's house or a relative's place, and just grew up around a lot of people. So on that side, she did an amazing job with me then. And then what was very important to her was education, right? So she comes from a long line of of people who are really educated. Her brother was called the professor. Like, we still call him Uncle Professor till today. We had an uncle lawyer, we had an uncle professor, we had an auntie miss who was a teacher, right? So like, if you think about these titles, these people were the first lawyer in the family, the first professor. And so for her, when she was thinking about my education, she knew that she wanted me to come to school in the States. She was fortunate also to have studied in the States. She went to Rutgers, proud, very, very proud of her education here. And she knew that she wanted to give that to me. And so she worked very hard. We came to New York, visited a couple of times, and then summer of, I think it was 2000, we were in New York City, and we identified the university I would attend, which was one of the city universities in New York called Hunter College. And I remember I applied in a internet cafe, so people who might remember then when you had to pay, a certain amount for 30 minutes to get internet. That's how I applied for school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, actually, I take that back. I applied in here, gave the hard copy, but that's how I used to check the status. And I remember I actually got admitted, and I was supposed to have started school the spring of 2002. But I missed the email. And so I had to like re-up.
Oh boy, wow.
And then, be able to go back in there, get the email, write Hunter College and say, please, can we defer my admission? Long story short, admission was deferred. My mom came and dropped me off summer of 2002. And that began my now 24 years life journey being in the United States, going through college and then moving on. And I'm sure we'll get a little bit into that, but she has such a huge influence in how she interacted with people, how she valued education. And then I think also for me being international, I knew I didn't want to disappoint her by being in school here and many, many, many miles away from her. So I wanted her to be proud of, proud of me, even though I was not in her purview every single day.
No, that's fantastic. I have to admit, I completely phased out when you said your mother had 44 brothers and sisters.
Yes.
So I'm thinking you're defining brother and sister a little differently than I am. Are they like half brothers and sisters?
Yeah, so that's why I preface this by her being raised in a polygamous environment. So polygamous environment just meant her father had many wives, but they all grew up in community. There was no half, right? Everyone considered themselves brothers and sisters. So so for me, I just always grew up thinking that, oh, this is how life is. No, not at all.
Yeah, that's wow. That's, I knew these things were out there in the world. I just have never met anybody that lived in that type of situation. So that's fascinating. So
yeah.
we don't want to make the whole podcast about that, but at some point
no, you have to bring my mother on to tell you how she was raised in that environment.
So you came here for college, and you mentioned how important that is to your family. And I'm curious because you've got a degree in mathematics and education and social policy. Not exactly the most common path to become a CFO of a prestigious New York architecture firm, I wouldn't think.
Not at all. And I'll give you a little backstory. Even when you go back to the application I had filled out for Hunter College, math and anything education related wasn't even on it, right? So I believe I came here wanting to study computer engineering. And I always say I took the first semester of physics and, in my way, failed woefully, which was a C. I was like, oh, no, this is not for me. I cannot do this. Like my entire 4-year degree is going to be physics related. No. But however, I always had a strong affinity for math. In high school, I enjoyed doing math, and I credit that switch in degree to a teacher in high school who had pointed out, maybe I believe it was in, we would call it our SS2, which is 11th grade, and it signed me up for like a math competition. And so I was like, well, if that teacher thought, I was pretty strong or one of the top students, maybe, and I'm really enjoying the math classes I'm taking at Hunter, maybe I should go visit the department and see if I could craft out a career path. They actually had an accelerated bachelor's and master's program where your bachelor's would be in math, and then the accelerated path was either in pure math or applied math. And applied math basically meant you could apply to any industry and work wherever you wanted to. And then I did a minor in comp sci. And so I picked up the phone and called my mother, who was paying my tuition, and had like this whole script of like how I was going to chart this path, because, it's difficult if you had sent a child here and there was a clear-cut, degree that we could then say, okay, this is a role you will get afterwards, to now saying you're going to study math. However, she was very supportive, which I still cherish to today and thank her, because I think if she had given me any kind of like doubt, forget it, maybe I would just have gone back to that physics teacher. But, I was able to then complete my first and second degree in 5 years. I did graduate without any internships. I used to interview really poorly then. I was always afraid. I didn't know how to represent myself. But I say that there was a turning moment, getting very close to graduation, knowing that I needed to find a job. And I found this entry-level position for a junior project accountant at an architecture firm. And the reason why I applied for that role was because in high school, I had taken technical drawing for one term. Literally, I had no idea what the architectural world was about. I didn't, I had no clue, but I knew that I needed a job. This was something that I could connect with. And so I applied. And I always say, fortunately, the interviewer also studied math, right? So I went into that interview. I was like, you know what? I'm going to be myself. I'm going to like talk about my degree and talk about this thesis I was working on. And if they like me, cool. If not, I guess my time is up in America and I will be heading back to Nigeria. But I guess I must have made a good impression. And I always say with entry-level jobs, you're hiring more for character. You don't know anything, so is the person trainable? And do we feel that their character will, at the end of the day, that the skills that they will learn, do they have good character? And I believe that that's why I was hired. I was able to demonstrate that in that interview. And so that began my journey into the architecture world. Now, fast forward 10 years later, going to this education and social policy degree, how does that come into play? Well, I always had a passion for education. I always thought I was going to go back to school. I didn't know what I was going to go back to school for. I was considering between an MBA and anything else, but I didn't want to take exams. And I was doing work with my nonprofits focused in education in Nigeria. And I would call it like a very, very early, not mid, because I wasn't even mid. So early crisis, career crisis. I was like, I've spent so long in this industry, again, 10 years or 8 years. I wasn't able to necessarily see what my path would be. And so I said, okay, maybe this is a great time for me to get this education and social policy degree done and out the way. I didn't want to wait later. My baby was a year and I was pregnant. So I said, this is the best time to get it done. Crazy, right? I was 6 months pregnant when I started that second degree. However, it was just because it was fueled because of this passion that I had with the work that I was doing. And because I was doing one project at a time, I thought, oh, it would be great if I had book knowledge on how to solve some of these issues on a larger scale, right? Where the impact I could have maybe be through consulting or whatever the case may be. I knew that I needed to have a degree behind me. And so that's what happened. I went and got it done. And that's this very interesting path. Now, I get the degree. I'm almost done with the degree. I'm at my role. I have the 2 kids, and I get a phone call asking if I would be interested in running a finance group at an architecture firm. Let me just take a step back. I was a senior project accountant, right, at at the
That's a
firm.
big leap. I'm thinking. I'm
It
not
is a
working
double
your industry, but
promotion,
yeah.
right? It was a double promotion. I was like, who are you talking to, me? But I took the call, right? I took the call, and the person on the other line, his name is Christian Giordano. He's president and partner at Mancini, one of my partners now at Mancini. He and I worked at my first job, HLW, together. We barely crossed paths. But he always says that he remembers coming to the accounting department, and I was the only one who spoke to him when he came to drop off his expense reports. He was a director of architecture. Again, I was this junior project accountant, at that position. But again, character, right? That thing about character and how you interact with people and how you treat people made my name come up in conversation 10 years after. And so
That's crazy. So
isn't that crazy? And so we went to lunch. He told me about, I think at that point in time, he was 2-3 years into, running Mancini and like really just redefining how the firm is positioned, who is coming along this journey with him. And I said, are you crazy? I am a senior project accountant. What you're asking me to do, is now looking at finances on a firm-wide level. My experience so far has been, while the firm I worked at was very prestigious, so I had international exposure, but everything was all project level, right? I wasn't exposed to a lot of things on the firm side. However, he had such full support for me, really believed in me, really believed that I could step up to the role. Also gave a resource, right? So he had a financial consultant who worked with me for the first year. And I say like that for me was a game changer, right? I knew I would be able to step up, but just having, someone in the form of a consultant and now who is my mentor, right? He's a mentor of mine. Having that, I think was very, very key to me succeeding, right? So I always tell him still, I was like, after year one, I outgrew needing him as much as I did, but having him there for year one, just to go over concepts, go over the history. So he was very familiar with the company. Just help guide, navigate without judgment, without any any airs about him, but really just be a sounding board as I'm working and learning about the organization was essential to my success. So yes, I mean, a very long way to tie in my 2 degrees, but I say, if you go back to the math, right? What does a math degree give me? The ability to think about problem solving very, very differently. It's not just one way of approaching it. At the end of the day, accounting at basis is just algebra.
well, yeah, accounting is rules based, and mathematics is the opposite of that, right? You're just solving a problem without regard for rules.
Yes, yes. So, all of these experiences that I've had, coupled with just how I functioned as an accountant, really see myself as a key member of the project team, going beyond just issuing invoices at the end of the month and actually wanting to learn about the project. What stage are you in? How do I help the project succeed from an accounting perspective? How do I become I call it the nth sense of design, right? Where from the numbers, I can ask questions that helps the project team think about, think about challenges they're working through differently, or raise flags early enough. I think having that experience set me aside differently for this now controller position I took in 2017. What then ends up happening is a year after, I've always worked for the next role, I would say, without even maybe sometimes knowing it. I was really a true strategic partner to them. I was really invested in the company, really just wanting to see us define what our financial vision is, tied to the goal, all of that stuff. And my partner was like, enough of the controller title. We need to right stand your title and give you the CFO promotion. And so that's how that's my interesting path to CFO. Very, very grateful for the door and way being open for me.
That's fantastic. I do have to object to one thing you said, though.
Sure.
You gave up because you were getting C's. I was killing myself to get C's. I'm from the school that, if you get a C, if you have a 2.0 GPA, you get the same degree as everybody else.
Oh
So
my gosh.
why put any extra effort into it? So
Could you imagine me coming all the way from Nigeria
to get C? Yes, no.
get a C? I mean, not to say that like that wasn't my last C. But I was young, right? I was 17, and first time fully away from home, coming again from, and I would say maybe some of that pressure, right? Like wanting to make sure that I'm doing a really good job and living up to expectations, whether they were put on me or not, right? Was there. And also I just was not enjoying the course.
I mean, the whole thing about grades, it's so much pressure on like a 17, 18 or 19-year-old. Like I know MIT a few years ago, they actually stopped giving grades for freshman year. They wanted the students to come in and just learn the material to the best of their ability and at their own pace without, having to worry about getting a grade. And it just, you can get so stressed out, right? I mean, just I'm joking about being a C student myself, but you can think that the grade and how you do on like a standardized test at that age is the biggest thing in the world. And it's really not, but if you grow up your whole life being led to think that, you're not going to not think that for most of us anyway. So
yes. And there's some stuff like, culturally from Nigeria also, and the importance of like having excellent grades that just, played into how, I performed in school. I did all right.
I'm sure you did better than all right, Bola. But so I wanted to chat with you at Mancini Duffy. How big is the finance and accounting team?
So we are I would say we're a lean team. There is 6 of us.
Okay, including you?
Including myself, there's 6 of us.
Okay, so it seems like with that size report, you probably have a good personal connection to the entire team. But I'm curious a little bit about, what is your philosophy on building and growing teams? And I know that you're a practitioner of servant leadership.
I think, first of all, like the way I think of us, when I say us, the team is almost like a well-oiled machine or a tree. Everyone has their strengths, and we all have to come together and work together to be able to do our roles excellently, as well as serve, the firm, right? Or serve for my project accountants, how are they serving their project managers? For myself, how am I serving the partners and all employees really in between, at all levels, right? And so, it's very, very important for me, one, to understand each individual person on my team, how they work best, how we can make sure that they are communicating well with the folks that they have to work with, changing their mindset. So I'll take a step back. When I first joined, there were 2 ladies who worked at the organization that had been there for 25 years, right? So you could think about it, right? The way they thought the accounting group should perform and the way I thought that they should perform, completely different. They were used to, just being told what to do, not really given autonomy to make decisions, or like, hey, what do you think about this? This firm through and through. You've seen the project, seen the people. What do you think we should do differently to help improve our group and our work performance? And so like that was part of the first things that I did, was like just spend time getting to know the employees, people on my team. And so as the team grew over the years, it's the same way. I spend a lot of time with them first when they first start, and make sure that the tools, skills, resources that I'm giving them enables them run off run off well, run off good. Actually, I'm in the middle of doing a training now. I just hired a controller. I'm so happy.
All right.
I'm
Yeah, because
so
I've known you a couple of years and you haven't had one the entire
yes.
time. So
But at the rate at which our organization is growing, there was the need to have a strong second, right? And so it is, the way I just think about it is, how am I setting them up for success, right? To be able to do their role well, to be able to think without having to check in with me at every point in time, to be able to make decisions and be confident in the decisions they're making, to be able to catch themselves also when maybe when you make a mistake and not feel like they cannot speak up, right? So how are you building this team of trust? And so by spending this time and crafting it out, as painful as it might feel, meaning you want to focus on all your work, if you don't spend that time initially and along the way consistently, it just causes more issues for your team, right? You're spending constantly having to fix as you go. And so that's essentially my philosophy when it comes to building and developing the team. I will say one of the things that I've done much better along the way now being a leader is that radical candor part of it, right? Like if there are issues or we make a mistake on a team, like how am I making sure that my team is owning up to it? You have to be able to give good feedback, right? Not in a mean way, but in a way that is going to help them not be afraid to speak up if an issue comes up, but be able to react and be proactive about coming up with solutions. And so I think like that's something that I've in the last year, maybe two, worked on myself as a leader to be able to speak up and communicate better with my team rather than either just helping them work through it or not addressing it heads on. And I would say that it's made us for the better.
So that's a fantastic philosophy. And I know when we've spoken in the past, you had a quote that really stuck with me. And the quote was, once you know, you share. And can you describe what that means to you and, how you use that in a pragmatic way?
Yes. So for me, I think about that holistically in all areas of my life, right? As we're journeying in life and learning, how are you pouring out that information? If it can help someone, how are you either mentoring or giving back to make other people's pathways easier? And so throughout my career, I think at different points, whether it's an initiative that I've set up, be it, when I became a leader, I was like, I need to set up an organization or a community where other women who are making their paths within the architecture, engineering, interior design industry can come together regardless of department, right? So, and that was critical for me because I felt like a lot of the professional services organizations catered towards, the primary folks, which is the architects, the designers, but what about the accountant or the HR person or the lawyer who has now found themselves within this industry? How are they finding support as they're navigating their own career paths within here? So how do we all, regardless of the role that you have within the industry, how do we come together and support ourselves in our careers? So I started an initiative called She Builds Waves. And so that was when I became a leader, right? So when I became CFO, I started that. And then in COVID, I started thinking about a lot of our smaller architecture firms navigating this global crisis and, thinking about what can I either put out there from a resource perspective that can help them navigate their finances, help them feel like they were on top and in charge of managing and understanding how to run successful firms. And so I started She Builds Money. I have a whole She Builds initiatives, right? So, but the idea behind it is the ethos of that quote, right? As you know, then you hear, right? And so She Builds Money put out, one, two, three resources for smaller architecture firms. And then we shared a lot of content on social, just helping them like with what are some weekly check-ins, weekly financial check-ins you should be doing in your business? What should you do monthly? What is cash flow, right? Thinking about breaking down financial concepts in what I call KISS, right? Keep it so simple ways that helps the business owner or firm, the person running the firm, feel like they understood what they were doing. Same thing with my nonprofit, She Builds Lives, right? So education, I was afforded this great education. How could I give back to Nigeria, where I'm from? And so over the last, now we're about to be 11 years old. We've been supporting various schools in Nigeria. We have a flagship project called Project Tutored, which is we run in low income communities, giving them skills acquisition that can help the children of that community either earn a living as well as academic intervention, right? And so my whole life is sort of this way. I do the same thing with my friends, right? Regardless of our industries, how do we support each other as we are navigating? And so I'm always happy to share. I also feel like if you don't pour out to others, then you're going to get full. Like, how do I make space for me to learn more without pouring to other people? And so I feel like once, if your cup is too full and you don't pour it out, you're not getting anything new. And so like that's how I tend to live my life.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, on the subject of sharing knowledge, you and I met a couple of years ago because you authored a book.
Yes.
And the book is Build Boldly. Here I just so people on the hey,
That's
look at that. We're twins, but I think I momentarily forgot that this is a podcast, although it is on YouTube, so a few people will at least see it. But that was brilliant how we both had the book at the ready to show. But what motivated you to write the book, and what are some of the core lessons that you hope your readers will have found?
Yeah, so Build Boldly, wow, time has gone by. This is 2024. I wrote Build Boldly in 2021. And I always love to share this. I started 2021 with no idea that there was going to be a book birth. In fact, I never even wanted to write a book. I was just like, I will figure out my career and keep going and, keep sharing through these different initiatives that I had set up. However, very early on in 2021, I was having a conversation with someone older who, a lot of the things I had glossed over when I was talking about my career path and career journey, where I just thought, oh, people should, other people do this. So, like, this is not a big deal. People go to their CFO in the middle of a financial crisis and ask to do more rather than keeping their heads down, just to give you an example of something that I glossed over. And she encouraged me. She'd said, I don't mean to put any pressure on you, but one, you have this awesome and incredible journey moving here at 17 from Nigeria, and now you're CFO of a very prestigious architecture firm in New York City. I think, you should write a book about this path and what you did differently, right? Do some reflection, think about things that you can share with people that you think are not a big deal, but could be beneficial to your reader, and see if you are, you are open to writing this book. Long story short, I felt a lot of fear in that moment, and that was my trigger to let me know that I needed to write the book. Right. So for me, I was like, this is uncharted path. I've never experienced this. That means there's something for me to learn in this journey to writing the book. And so Build Boldly was birthed. And what I did in the book is I really reflected on my journey, thought about what were the key things. If I could go to inflection moments where I felt like I really my career really took off, or I had major growth, be it small or big, what essentially happened then? What were the steps that I took to getting there? And so I realized that those were a lot of bold moves there were a lot of bold decisions I made, whether I did them consciously or unconsciously, right? A 21-year-old, not much that you knew in life, but, as I'm moving along, there are a lot more intentional, bold steps I'm making. And because I love a good framework, or a good acronym, I should say, I came up with the BOLD framework, right? And so that's, B stands for be yourself. And really, when the doors opened for me, when opportunity came my way, it really and truly was because I was myself. And what does that mean? It's not, just feel good, but like I led with integrity. I led with my strengths. I spoke about my weaknesses, but they didn't deter, whoever was receiving it from giving me the opportunity, right? But if I was someone else in that moment, when the doors opened for me and I walked in, there would have been issues, And so really thinking about, or really wanting others to really think about what does it mean to be yourself and begin to live that life out. And O stands for open your mind to new definitions and opportunities. I say a lot of, if I just stayed stuck in wanting to study math and like not exploring anything else, I don't know if this opportunity within the architecture world would have opened up for me. Or, let's fast forward even to becoming controller, right? If I wasn't open to taking that phone call, I wouldn't be on this podcast at this moment, So being open, being really open to opportunities created and made way for me. L, of course, is lift others. We just spent some time talking about that, right? So like, as I'm moving along, how am I lifting other people along the way, be it in a small way, even if it's one person, if it's many people, how am I lifting them as I'm moving along in life? And then D is don't wait, do it now. I think a lot of us are in our way from achieving our goals and dreams, and we just need to step out the way. We just need to quiet all the what ifs, and press forth. And so in the book, I talk about things from being courageous, pushing into your potential, how we as leaders are leading our firm at Mancini, because I want other firm leaders to really think about how are you leading boldly and authentically? Are you leading in a cookie cutter way that you think a leader should show up, or are you really leading as yourself, right? And I feel like you build stronger teams, you build a stronger organization when you are bold. It allows you to take bold moves, bold risks, of course, very calculated risks, but you need boldness to be able to move your firm and company forward in times like this, right? And I will say, let me give one example of how my firm has done things boldly. One, of course, through technology. So I guess it's now two, but two, Mancini used to be known as a corporate interiors firm that only serviced financial clients earlier on in the early days. My partners and I, we've diversified our sector, all the sectors that we serve. And I say like, that's part of, making bold moves, bold choices, bold decisions, because we could have been stuck. I think that's part of what has helped us even over the last 4 years, weather the storm, whether everything that happened in 2020 was because we just had clientele from all different levels. So yeah, that was a really bold move and decision that we made, and it's paid off for us in the long run.
Yeah, no, that, somebody once told me that people who are cautious seldom change the world, right?
Yo,
people who have a bold vision and take risks, they're the ones that really make the long-term impact. But you mentioned Mancini. I'd like to go back a little about that, because you mentioned Mancini and technology. And I know from our prior conversations that you're using it both within the finance and accounting team, but also you think that it's giving your firm a strategic advantage just in the way you serve clients. And can we talk a little about that sort of digital investment that the firm is making in its future?
Yes. So maybe right around, when I started 7 years ago, that was when, the conversations had started to pick up, right? Architecture has been done the same way for many hundreds of years. You design all of these beautiful projects. You're either building the 3D model that you print is a little miniature model of your project, but you can't really use it for anything. It's nice to have in your office space, but then, what else? What next? When you design these projects in the applications that they use, at the end of the day, they still have to print it on paper to give to the construction company, right? So things have been done the same way for a really long time. And, my partner, Christian, alongside some of the employees, right? So we gave a space for open forum, open discussion, really to start thinking about what can we do differently? What can we create? We first started off with 3D printing. And it was, how can we print items and things that we can incorporate into our projects? Like that's actual usable pieces that could be added into the project. And so I always go back to summer of 2017 when we bought our first 3D printer, and they printed like a bridge that looked like glasses. And it was cured.
You mean like eyeglasses or
like eyeglasses, like,
okay, so
and it was cured. When I say cured, like the mold was hardened outside in the sun for like, I don't know, a week or 3 weeks. So it just took forever. But that one print that we did was the gateway to us now having, I think, 4 or 5 fleets of 3D printers. We were able to do a feature wall for one of our clients. So when you walk into the reception, where they mixed in with proper brick and 3D printed bricks, right? And it had this like beautiful feature wall that was incorporated into the project. We did another a donor wall for one of our education related clients. And so like that, exploring that was really, really exciting for us. But because we started exploring that, it led to what we call, our 360 design process. We now started thinking, okay, how can we innovate? How can we do things differently in the way that we're delivering projects to our clients? And it birthed this thing called our 360 design process, where, like I mentioned, we bring in our clients from the very beginning.
So this is cutting edge stuff within your industry, it sounds like.
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. Sorry for the interrupt, but I just,
No,
it's
not at
fascinating to me,
all.
but I didn't know if that's because I don't know what I'm talking about.
No,
So,
this
okay.
is at least at the time when we started, no one else was really doing
Wow.
this, or maybe larger firms were in some form of fashion. But what makes our way different and why we have our patent approved now is that we developed we developed a program that connects a VR engine. So we put in, like I mentioned, the clients into the space. Even before you have the location, you might be considering different spaces, locations. We're able to put you in a white box and build the environment, but that is linked to the architect's model. So nothing is recreated once the key stakeholders have gone or the clients have said, oh, I would like to see, this table here. I want to see wood instead of metal, right? All of these things, we're able to make the changes real time, and it's actually changing in the architect's model. And when they step out, the architect does not have to recreate anything. What this does, or this way and process does, is it helps the clients, one, visualize and see things much earlier. They're able to make decisions faster. From a cost perspective, a lot of things that you will not pick up until you're actually constructing, we're able to then pick up and see in the space, again, much earlier on in programming, schematic design. So these are all architecture firms, but let's just say early on,
Sure.
early design, before the design is fully developed, you're able to pick a lot of these things on, and it saves time, right? It allows us deliver, close to what the client wants, rather than spending time showing them 3 different test fits, and they're like, oh, all of this is crap. We don't like this. Go back to the drawing board. So think about all that back and forth. It is reduced by the process that we've developed. We have something called a tool belt, and it literally looks like a belt on, I guess a construction person's waist. And there are different tools, different spaces, where one could be a measurement tool, one could be a tool where the client can leave notes, one could be a materials tool, right? And all of these help again with the decisions that have to be made concerning the projects. And again, for us, it's a it's our unique selling point when we're trying to win work, right? We're able to carry our clients on this journey. We're able to show them proof of concept with many, many projects that we've now done. But imagine, I always say the first client that took a chance on us with this was a restaurant client. He brought his chef into our office.
Oh, really? So
Yes, and him and his chef sat in the restaurant, sat at the bar, all in VR. And they could see that the TV screens were just a tad bit too high. Or they could see that the door to the kitchen was just too close in view to guests who would either be sitting at the bar or some parts of the restaurant. Again, on paper, in the model,
you
nobody
never see that. Yeah,
would
yeah.
you would never see it. Or like that the chef knew that he didn't have enough space to turn around and that he could potentially bump into his sous chef. All of these different things then let us know that we were onto something. And so this
Wow.
year, or this January, we received, the nice what's the document from the patent company saying that all our hard work, 7 years of hard work, is now finally being approved. So yeah, looking for me, it's very exciting. I think that's part of why I bought into the company, because again, you're part of something larger, right? You're not just coming in and going out, but like we actually have the ability to make impact, not just for our employees, but in the industry, right? Challenging our peers to think about their own things differently, and what could this potentially open up, right? Clients always giving us different ideas. Like, have you guys thought about using this software this way? And we're like, no, we
Hey,
haven't, but it's been exciting. It's been an exciting journey.
that's fantastic. And, since I've known you, you've always had such pride in working for Mancini Duffy. So it's amazing to hear the technology story. But I want to switch gears a little bit about a topic that I know is really important to you, philanthropy. And when we've spoken in the past, I've begun to, develop an inferiority complex that I'm not doing enough. But you do a lot of things that are philanthropic in nature. And I'm sort of curious, what are some of the things that you take the most pride in your life? And, how do you find time to do all of these?
Yes, I think I'll share one, and I touched on it a little briefly early on. So it's my nonprofit, She Builds Lives, and the work that we do through She Builds Lives, again, focused on improving the quality of education for children living in low-income communities in Nigeria. I think for me, any project that we're able to do that, can make a difference in their lives, make these children and their families feel like there's someone who actually cares. Well, not just me, but like, myself, the people who donate to the organization, but they feel like there's someone who cares about the future of their kids, is something special that I don't take for granted, and I believe I will always find time to do. We've been fortunate to be able to support a school in a floating community called Makoko over the last couple of years. We were able to rebuild their school space. So imagine an entire community all on water. And so this school is built on water, educates for free 200 children every school year.
Wow. And you're the founder of this charity, or do you?
No.
Okay.
So the school, a kind man called Noah is the principal of the school, and I got connected to him many years ago. And so my nonprofit has supported the school with the school rebuild, with radios and food during COVID, because that was the only way we could get education to the kids.
Yeah, I bet.
Don't think about, like kids in those communities can't just go home and log onto Wi-Fi. One, you don't have constant electricity. Two, there's no Wi-Fi. And so we had to think about what way can we provide education to them while they were out of, while they couldn't get to school. The state was broadcasting lessons, math, English lessons over radio. And so we were like, okay, we're going to buy radios so that they could listen at home. Think about the ripple effects also. Their parents a lot of times are not educated, but now everyone in the house is tuned into this radio, listening to lessons, right? So there was ripple effects beyond the children, even to parents who might want to listen or not. Yeah, so that's one project that we do. The other one that we do that we're now expanding, and like I mentioned, is a flagship project, is called Project Tutored. That is twofold: skills acquisition and academic intervention. We started in an internally displaced people's camp. So that's people who have been displaced from their homes and had to move to, other parts of the country due to religious challenges that were existing in their states. And so we've supported that program there. Last year, we were able to now move into 2 states, and this year we're hoping to be able to move into 5. And so the idea is to have, project tutored all across the different communities where the skills are tailored to the community, because what might work in one doesn't necessarily work in the other, right? So we come up with 2 to 3 skills that we teach them over the course of the summer. So about 4 to 5 weeks, we teach them. Where do I find the time?
Because you have 2 children, 2 relatively young kids. I have 2
children,
too,
right? So because, like, for example, Project Tutored is done in the summer, we have most of the year to like figure out the logistical part of it. And then we're plugged in the summer. With the other school, it's you have trusted people who are back home that are running it, so that when, if I'm not as plugged in the day-to-day, there's someone there who is in the day-to-day who can update me on school needs, on things for the children that we might need to get. Maybe I need to quickly do a fundraiser to make sure that we can cover whatever might be coming up. And that has helped along the way. It's forming these long-term relationships with people back home.
Okay, cool, interesting. So I have a question. In fact, I may have a bit of a problem for you. I keep hearing about these lavish parties that you throw, and I haven't been invited to one yet. Are you angry at me? And
of course not. Please, anytime.
No,
please.
But that's you take a lot of pride in the parties that you host. Is that fair to say?
Yes, for my kids, I feel like it's an outlet, right? Because my 9 to 5-ish, let me call it 9 to 5-ish, because work you're constantly thinking about. I feel like it's an amazing outlet for me where, I get to connect with my kids. We think about themes for their birthdays now that they're older, and just, it's something that I look forward to. My daughter just turned 10, and so we had a 10X party.
Nice.
Everything was larger than life. It was so much fun. The kids enjoyed it. What other one I'm trying to think of other themes that I have done. Oh, when she turned 7, we had a 007 escape room themed party. So that was really fun. It was also her golden birthday. So it was the girl with the golden birthday. You see,
in my next life, I want to be one of your kids.
That's what everyone says. Everyone's like, adopt me. But I always bring the same energy, even if it's just a couple kids in the house or it's a larger party. My goal always is for the kids to have a good time, to go home with great gifts that the parents wouldn't be upset with. I don't send home with a lot of candy. But again, it's an outlet for me, and I enjoy it. It brings some lightness, will I say, to the seriousness of my job.
Yeah, you need to have all of that balance. So cool. Well, Bola, this has been great, and I'd love to conclude. If you can share some advice or some of the wisdom you've accumulated to the next generation of CFOs.
Yes, I would say, think about your life in seasons. There's a time for learning, and you might currently be in a learning season. Don't try to like run too fast. But if you're in a learning season, who are you learning from? How are you connected? How are you helping yourself improve? I mean, you're always constantly learning, but really and truly in your career, there's a time where you just don't know what you don't know, right? So make sure that you're open and staying curious to learning at all different phases. And I think the second thing I would say is don't be afraid of the opportunity that would be in front of you. It could be an opportunity to step up, to add more to your role, or to step into a new role and position, or to just do more in your firm, in your CFO role if you're just starting. Don't be afraid. Trust yourself. Trust your inner gut on the decisions that you have to make, and it would all work out in some way, shape, or form. It will work out for you.
Well, I think that's wise advice. And for those listening in, I just want to remind you, Bola did write a wonderful book. It's called Build Boldly, Chart Your Unique Career Path and Lead with Courage. It's available for sure at Amazon, because that's where I got my copy, but probably pretty much everywhere, right? So yeah, I publish through Amazon's publisher thing, so that's the only
Me
place.
too, but I think other houses carry it.
Cool. Well, anyway, this has been a fun conversation, very insightful stuff that you shared, and great to, learn a little bit more about your own background. And thank you so much for being here. I'd love to give you the final word.
Thank you so much, Jack. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for listening to this episode. To continue your exploration of this role that focuses on strategy, leadership, finance, and technology, listen to more episodes of the show at rockstarcfos.com. Join this revolution, episode by episode. Push yourself to achieve great things and unlock the best opportunities available to you. CFOs are creating a legacy, and it's time for you to leave your own unique imprint on the world today. That's all for now. See you on the next one.